if we're getting ready to start, I would like to kind of introduce you. It is now 12:10. Stephanie, you okay with that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and I would like to thank you for joining us, the AMPC, on this amazing Saturday afternoon. Our presenter today is Dr. Lela Horne, is a veteran ESL math teacher with 22 years of service in Marietta City Schools, that is in Georgia. She also has experience as a GED instructor with Cobb Adult Educational Center and experience as a pre-algebra adjunct of Chattahoochee Tech College. Lela is a past president of Georgia TESOL for 2018-2019 school year and served 2 terms as the EL Advisory Committee with the Georgia Department of Education from 2018 to 2020. Her broad range of educational experience, her background in math, and her expertise as an ESL teacher drives her passion for sharing strategies that promote content, language integration, and learning. I am so honored and privileged, Stephanie and I, to present to you Dr. Horne as she brings out understanding the language of math concepts in a pandemic. Take it away, Dr. Horne.
Well, thank you so much for that enthusiastic introduction. I really appreciate it. And welcome, everyone. I hope that we have a lot of interchange today. So we have a small group for now. So if you feel like unmuting yourself and asking your question, that's fine. If you feel like just putting a question in the chat, that's great. We have chat moderators today. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to stop showing you the PowerPoint presentation at this point. I'm going to switch over to Nearpod. So give me a second here. Not sure how many of you use Nearpod in your instruction, but with COVID, we have to find ways to bridge the gap, and a talking head doesn't always do it. So I use Nearpod. It is a free service. And here's the same slide you were just seeing in PowerPoint. So what I generally do is I create a presentation for the students in PowerPoint, and then I upload it to Nearpod. There's a little quirkiness when it comes to some of the formatting issues you can see right here. But other than that, it's pretty good. And this way, it becomes an interactive presentation. So I have 3 people in, so we're going to go ahead and go. So for today, when we talk about content, I focused on the standards of mathematical practice. And we're trying to make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. So as an ESOL teacher, I teach in different formats. I teach in sheltered instruction, where I am both the math and the language teacher, or I could be pushing into a classroom where I'm supporting learning. But either way, I need to focus on a content area as well as a language area. So today, there's a lot of things that you do when you plan, as you already know, because you're experienced ESOL teachers. But today, we're going to focus on those linguistic challenges that students encounter. And by that, I mean specifically the vocabulary issues and the sentence structure issues. And we'll talk about what that means as we go along. So our content and the language objectives for today are here. I'm not going to read the screen to you, but I do want to stop for a moment and go to chat because I see there's a couple of questions. Let's see.
People just love Nearpod.
You love Nearpod. Great. I do too. Nearpod is, if you're not using Nearpod, you just should be. So, and we're, my employer, we have the premium version, so we get the reports on student interactivity with the program. But for today's purposes, just the free version is fine. We want to engage students, and because let's face it, we're competing against social media, even if we're talking about young adults. So we have to do things that are interesting to them, and that PowerPoint just, it doesn't make it all the time. So here's our first activity. Do you write content and language objectives. It's just a poll, and you can just answer yes or no. Hopefully that comes through for you. Got one answer. And see, the thing is, you have to figure out how to navigate as the student. The time is up. So what I'll do is I can always back out of it and then start it again if I wanted to give more time. And I can share the results. All right, so, you know, sometimes I know we get pressed, and I can't say that I write a daily language objective. I may sometimes write a more broad weekly language objective, particularly if we're talking about the writing domain. But, you know, I don't want to get off on a tangent about how to write language objectives, but it does keep the focus in math on what the students need to be able to do or how they're going to apply the math concept. So I encourage you to do that. Okay, so just as a review, because I assume that we all know about the tiers of vocabulary, but I wanted to make sure that we felt comfortable in discussing that. And again, I see a little bit of a quirkiness with the formatting from PowerPoint to Nearpod, but nothing that is unduly, you know, distracting or anything like that. Does anybody have any questions about the tiers? Are we familiar with that? I didn't do a poll for this one. So I'm going to move on. Let's see. So, you know, the target vocabulary that we're going to front load, that becomes the issue, right? Are we going to be front loading state standard vocabulary, you know, the tier 3? Are we going to use frequently used vocabulary for our discipline? What exactly is it that you're going to be front loading? You have to be able to identify that. Of course, you know, we want cognates and false cognates as well, but we have to identify the language that we're going to be front loading. That requires a lot of planning. So just do a quick check and select the tier 2 vocabulary, just so I know that everybody is on the same page. All right. I love it when I get one response. And I'm never quite sure if there's this lag because we're on the internet or what. So let's see. All right. So the tier 2 vocabulary is going to be the vocabulary of the directions, I like to say. If we're asked to explain or discuss, or, you know, usually we're looking for a verb. To explain, to discuss, to identify. These are going to be your tier 2 words. They're very important. They're interdisciplinary, so they should be used in multiple classes, giving students more experience with them, but they do require direct instruction because it's not vocabulary that they're hearing every day. The tier 3 vocabulary is specific to math, and you know, they're going to be encountering that only in the math class. So we have to decide, you know, are we going to be teaching both? Are we going to teach them separate? How much time will we, you know, use to attend to the tier 2 versus the tier 3? These are, this is the art of teaching. This is what we have to decide. And so we're going to be discussing that today. There are different strategies, and we all have our go-tos, right? We have anchor charts and TPR, which is one of my favorites, especially even with upper grade students. You know, if you're learning transformations, you know, I always talk about them as I move around. The translation, the rotation means turn, the reflection means to flip. And so I do these hand movements as I talk about them with the students so that they understand what's going on. And I don't think you're ever really too old to get TPR. And of course, there is the, you know, the gold standard, the Freire model. But here's the thing, when you are always using one strategy in your class, then, you know, it becomes stale, it becomes boring, it becomes, you know, it's not novel anymore. And then you start to lose the student's interest. I don't think that, so for me, I'll say it this way, I do use the Frere model. It is the gold standard, but I use it as a, as a glossary. So this has to be a tier 3 vocabulary word that students are going to be using, and they're going to need it as a reference. If they complete their assignments in, the Frere model, then I may allow them to use it, their glossary in an open book format, a test or something of that nature. I'm a fan also of, semantic features analysis and showing the relationship between different academic words. That's really important for me. So sometimes it's not so much the denotation of the tier 3 word that I'm after, but the connotation, right? What does it make you, what do you remember about it? I want to know that information as well. And sometimes the connotation is even more important to me than the denotation, than the actual definition. What I wanted to tell you about online, however, is foldables. You remember those? So I'm going to do a new share with you real quick and take you to a website called wordwall.net. You don't have to write any of these websites down, by the way. At the end, I'm going to share all these free resources with you. They're links so that you can sign up if you so choose. So let me go ahead and pull up this word wall so you can see. All right, so this is word wall, and I'm just going to go into an activity. And this makes learning the vocabulary, it's really, it's about the number of times we can get students to interact with vocabulary. That's really important. And so I'll play this for you. And you see that it becomes just this click and drag, right? Well, after a while, aren't you going to get tired of click and drag? But you still don't understand the vocabulary word yet. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to change it to a different interactive. And now we can go, and now the definition is going to sort of scroll by as we, this is alternating exterior. So you can, what I love about this website is, especially in the online format and online, because of the pandemic, we can keep the interest of our students. So, and I know that some of you work with older students, but this reminds me of Pac-Man. They call it the maze chase, but you see the little picture here, and then you have to match your Pac-Man, use your arrows up and down keys to get to the vocabulary word you want before you're eaten, by the way. So, but again, if you're working with adults, perhaps you don't want to do that. Perhaps you want to stick with something a little bit more tried and true, like the matching or the quiz game show environment or something like that. But the point is that you can change the activity so that the students continue to interact with the same vocabulary without becoming bored. So let me switch back over to the Nearpod. All right, so I want you to share with us your favorite vocabulary strategy. Doesn't have to be something that I have listed. It could be something else. I do have a good crossword puzzle, yeah.
But Dr. Horne, I did want you to know I've used the word before, the word wall with my adults, and a lot of them really enjoyed it because they stated it wasn't threatening to them. It made it a little more fun, and it made it more interactive as they work with each other, because they were a little, sometimes with the language barrier, and they just wanted to feel a little more inclusive, and that made it happen. So I like that strategy that you just provided.
You're right. It's a low stress, low stress environment, and people seem to like it, children and adults. So I love that. If you have a website that for the crossword puzzle partners that you could share with us in chat, that would be great. So I'm all about collaboration. I'm all about, I do love Quizlet too. That's another one, puzzlemaker.com. Great. So we'll make sure, well, this is being recorded, but we'll make sure we share this information as well with everybody because, you know, we all have our favorites, we all have our go-tos, but I think that the point that I'm trying to make is that we need to have a variety of strategies for students. But then it becomes a question of, well, how do we pair the strategy with the importance of the vocabulary word? I mean, do we want a freer model for absolutely everything? I don't think so. So we need to look at that. Blookit is a great website as well. And I see we have a few comments in chat. They work together to complete the puzzle. Yes, Nearpod does have the Socrative quizzes, yeah. Quizzes is another great website too. Quizzes and Kahoot. Okay, so we're gonna move on and we have that recorded, so that's great. So when I give a assignment to groups, I always assign a role for the students. So we're gonna break out into groups in a few minutes here. And you know, you don't, obviously we're adults and we're ESOL professionals, you don't have to go by these prescribed roles, but I did wanna give you an idea of what I do when I work with students. There's a comfort level to knowing that I know what I'm going to do when I get to the group, and everyone has a role. So therefore, there's not going to be this sense that only 2 or 3 people are doing the work and the others can just kind of sit back. So it's really important to make sure that you have group roles, and then you want to check in with your breakout groups as you go along. So Sherry, do you guys have the breakout rooms ready? And I can explain how we're going to do this.
Yep, tell me how many you would like. How many groups would you like?
So we have 12 participants, and let's just put 3 in a group.
Okay.
3 in a group. Now, when you get to the groups, I'm going to go ahead and share this with you as I send this out, because we're all instructors here. So what I've done is I've created this link for our first group, right? It's imperative that this is case sensitive. So instead of typing in your name, because it's going to ask for your name, you're going to type in A1 if you're in group A1. And that's because if you type in the same name, then you'll all go into the same document. Okay, so that's really important. So go ahead and highlight this and send this to chat. So see if that goes through. All right, so I've sent this to chat, but this is for group A1. Now, Sherry, we haven't practiced this before. Are you guys just telling everyone who is going to be in which group?
I can manually just change the names to these. If you want A1, A2, and B1, that's fine.
That's fine. Yeah, if we could do that, that'd be great. Love consistency. So now this next one coming through on chat is for group A2.
We only have 3 groups based on our number, so.
Okay, that's fine. And this will be B1. And just remember to type those names, A1, A2, and B1, and then you'll go into the same assignment.
Sounds good. Would you like me to open the room?
Yes, if you could go ahead and open the room. One more thing I want to say before you guys leave. When you get in, you're going to see some highlighted, yellow highlights. One of the ways that I differentiate without having to create multiple assignments is I create one assignment, And part of the assignment is, it's what I call the essential part, right? This is what I really need you to do. The other part, you know, it's important, but because I know that our speaking lexicon is greater than our writing lexicon, if I'm going to send ESOL students, I might tell them, okay, you can do the closed sentences or the multiple choice, or the, you know, the where you just have to select true or false or something like that. But you don't have to do the writing. When we return, I'll just ask them, you know, what I want to ask, and then they can tell me what their answers were. So I don't require the writing necessarily. So if you don't want to do the non-highlighted parts, that's perfectly fine, but please do try to pay attention to the highlighted parts. Thank you. And now they can go ahead and be sent to chat to the breakouts, and I'll come and visit you in just a second.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the breakout rooms now. I'm going to A1.
So Lela, real quick. Let me know if you need help getting into your breakout room too. I'm happy to help you. If you need help getting into your breakout room, let me know. Not sure if it'll kick you over or not automatically. Hey, Lela, you're muted. You're muted, Lela.
Yeah, I'm going to go into the next breakout room. I see some people are already back. That's great. I'll be with you in just a second. Okay, just one more group to go visit and then we'll all reconvene.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's see.
Want me to
We're gonna-
close the room?
Yeah, you can go ahead and close the rooms. That'd be great. And then I'm going to do a share with everyone. Has everyone had a chance to return, or does it usually it gives me like a 60-second countdown or something?
Yep, they still have 32 seconds, so I would just.
Yeah.
Give it a minute. Another like 15 seconds and then you should be good.
Okay. All right. And those of you who are here, what you're looking at is the ClassKick app from the teacher's perspective. I set up all these different groups, and I can actually go into the group. One time, what you can also do is just set up one document and then have multiple students working individually. And what I love about ClassKick in this pandemic environment is that I can see students performing their mathematical operations, and I can correct them in real time. And I can just click between students, or I can pair students into a group and, let them work together. So let's just go into an assignment and you'll see I can view the work. You just click in and we can see what's been done here. And there really were no right or wrong answers. Honestly, it's really up to the instructor. My goal was to get you familiar with ClassKick and to see how easy it was to use. You certainly could just press the text box and click anywhere on the screen, and then you can type what you want, or you can use the writer. I'm sure that most of these apps at this point have the same options. So I created a document in Word, and then I saved it as a PDF. And then after you save it as a PDF, you can upload your document, or you can download something that's already in the ClassKick program. All right, so this is group A2, which is perfectly fine. It was just a discussion tool for our purposes today. And think it was B1 was the other group we had. Again, we're going to view work. And apparently, I guess the link was a problem. I did a live link, but again, because I saved it as a PDF, I'm sure that was probably part of the problem. But again, you know, the goal wasn't for you to actually watch the video and do the work. The real goal was for you to discuss what was going on as far as which strategy you think should be used for that target vocabulary. And I see we have a question in chat or a comment. Nearpod has this too. Okay, great, great, good to know. And yes, in Nearpod, you know, you'll see that I'm gonna go ahead and switch back over to Nearpod as a matter of fact, and you'll see that you can collaborate, you can share, you can watch in real time, but I don't know, I found that for the math problems, looking at the whole class and being able to correct them just comes easier or more natural to me when I'm using the class kick. But so, you know, you have to use what works. So there are considerations to select a strategy. Obviously, you know, you want the language level of the student. You don't want them to use the FRAIR model when they have to write a sentence about this, using this word, if they're not at that level yet. The novelty of the strategy certainly is very important. You know, I've got to say a word about visuals a little bit. When you're teaching a vocabulary, there are different reasons for selecting a visual. And so you need to be cognizant of why you're putting that visual there. Is it just decorative? That's important. Okay, so we're going to move on from here, this discussion, as great as it is. Before we left, and I see another little formatting issue, but I wanted to give you the list of these are my go-to tier 2 vocabulary words. And you might think, you know, these words, what, where, when, why are they tier 2? Well, whether a word is tier 1 or tier 2 depends on the student that you're teaching. If you're teaching in lower elementary, what, where, when, why, which, these are actually tier 2 words for you. If you're teaching at the college level, then perhaps these would be considered tier 1 for you. So it really depends on the student that you are working with. Just wanted to make mention of that. And now we're going to talk a little bit about discourse and linguistics. But before we do, well, you know what, let me just go back for a second, because I haven't given you a moment to unpack your thoughts about vocabulary and what just happened. So let me just go back for a second. Does anybody have any thoughts? You can go ahead and unmute yourself. About the class kick, was it new? Did you feel that it was you know, helpful in any way? Did you feel it was too cumbersome? Any comments whatsoever?
Well, I think it's helpful. I really like the droid function from Nearpod. So this is kind of similar in the way that you can draw on it, you can mark on it, you can write on it, but also students have to demonstrate the outcome, right? The results of their work. So I thought it's useful for teachers, because sometimes when you put them into a breakout room, and if there's no clear outcome, maybe it's difficult to motivate them to work together.
That's true. And, you know, sometimes what I do, I create notes for the students, and I might put the notes in either a Google Drive, you know, just a Google document, or in class kicks, and then they have to fill in the blank, right? And they may work with the group to fill in the notes as a recap for the day, as a review. So it doesn't just have to be for, you know, numeracy. It could be for an assignment like we just did, or just for note taking, and you're trying to review the class. So there are a lot of different applications, a lot of different ways that you could use class kick. But, you know, Nearpod, of course, is my go-to. I should be a salesman for Nearpod at this point. But thank you so much for your comments. Okay, so seeing nothing in chat, if there are no more comments, now we're going to go ahead and move to the next part. Does anyone need a break at all, or can we move on? If you find that you do need a break, just go ahead and step away and just send us a chat to let us know when you return. Okay, so let's talk about discourse analysis and linguistic analysis. We're going to pay attention to the sentence structure, and we're going to be teaching that in the middle of a math class. Not to the extent that an ELA teacher or an English language arts teacher would teach it. We're not going to use all the tier 3 vocabulary of language arts. When we talk about the difference between linguistics and discourse, I want to talk about that a little bit too. When we talk about linguistic analysis, we're pretty much just focusing on grammar, and that's it. But the discourse is more the meaning behind the grammar. Why is it this way? And how is it structured? So it's really a combination of the two, I find. Discourse analysis is a technique used by researchers. And so we're not going to be, fully teaching all of it, but we're going to use aspects of discourse analysis and aspects of linguistic analysis while we are teaching math. And I find that this is very helpful. So there are 3 basic sentence structures that we're going to focus on: simple, compound, and complex. This is not the entire breadth of sentence structures for the English language, obviously, but I find that most assessments focus on these 3 types. In fact, there's evidence from newspapers that really the readability of the newspaper, the USA Today, for example, is written on a 6th grade level. So because they want more people to be able to understand it. So we're going to make sure we understand at least the simple, compound, and complex. And then as far as types of sentences, we have to address active and passive voice. It is important that students know how to attack these, they have skills to attack these issues, but I don't want to paint passive voice sentences as wrong or bad in any way. I think that in my time as an instructor, there's been this shift that that we must write everything in active voice. And while that's true, disciplines like math and science, where we focus on a process, passive voice is extremely important because we want the attention to be on the process rather than on the subject. So enough said about that. Okay, so perhaps you were like me, and when I became an ESOL teacher, while I had a firm understanding of the language and the culture, grammar was another issue altogether. And I can also say that I've been an ESOL teacher long enough where I've seen this shift take place to where at one point, especially in K-12, we focused primarily on grammar and not so much on comprehension. Just did you understand the rules of the language? And then we shifted away from that. Now we're so engrossed in the content and how to integrate content with the language. That's becoming very important. But I want to make sure that everybody remembers how important structure is to comprehension. So what do I say to students? I say, the subject is just who or what the sentence is about. And I want you to look for a noun or a pronoun because, 99% of the time that's going to be your subject. And of course, we have the, fanboys, right? For the compound sentences, the conjunctions. I always tell students and, or, and but are the 3 most commonly used conjunctions in the English language. But for math and science, we have to add this, the word so, because that conjunction shows, cause and effect. So this is extremely important that they understand it. And finally, there is the complex sentence, right? With that independent and a dependent clause. There's a lot of terminology with that. Instead of saying independent, I just call it main clause. And you'll notice that I keep saying main clause at all times so that we don't lose that language. Sometimes I'll say, we are looking for the simple sentence because the truth of the matter is main clause and independent clause all mean simple sentences. They're really just synonyms. So, and it becomes confusing if we use too many of the ELA terms in a math class. All right. So now this part of Nearpod I absolutely love. This is a 2-minute video that I'm going to play. And during the video, I was able to insert questions. So this is something, again, that you can do with students. And this video actually comes from YouTube. It's part of the Nearpod listing. So you just go into the Nearpod, you select it. It's so simple. And it's a review of what is a sentence. If you wanted to slow down let me make sure that you can hear when I am sharing my audio. If you wanted to slow down the video, you could slow it down here. But I'm gonna play it at normal speed today. Sorry. And you'll see I've only put 2 questions in at these points. So it'll just stop automatically. Okay, how many types of sentences are there? 2 or 3? And you're going to go ahead and select. Thank you so much for those participating. Let's see, we're going to share the solution. All right. 3, thank you. And that's another thing. Thanks, Sherilyn, for doing that. Some people chose, instead of answering through the Nearpod, you can just answer through chat. Because again, we want to make sure we include everyone. So I'm not able to show you all the features of Nearpod today, but I certainly hope I'm able to convince you that PowerPoint just isn't enough to keep the engagement. Another question coming up, because we have students who don't always pay attention to the video. An independent clause, a main clause, and a simple sentence are all synonyms. Is that true or false? We should get 100% on this one because I already gave this answer. And the answer for this one is absolutely true. They're synonyms, so we really don't have to debate that whatsoever.
I made a mistake and sent mine directly to Stephanie, but I said A is really true.
That's perfectly fine. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about active and passive sentences too. And there were a couple of comments being made. Let me go back and acknowledge those two. Let's see, Ed Puzzle can do this. Ed Puzzle, you know what, if you could just, again, let's see, we're gonna add this to our list. We said Ed Puzzle. And if, Lynn, if you could share with us that video, perhaps at the end we'll have time, and that would be great. So we just a link to it or send it to us somehow. I would love for that to be included, because it's really really important to do that. And as I was reading the word Ed Puzzle again, as I was saying that, so. Okay, active and passive voices. Well, this has to do with the subject, who or what the sentence is about. If the subject is before the verb, we have active. If it's after the verb, we have passive. So it's really important that students need to be able to switch between active and passive voice, because we read and we speak mostly in active voice. The passive voice sentence is unusual to us. So we need practice in switching it into an active voice. And then that way we can better understand what we're doing. So do any of you have questions? Yes. If you have questions, please go ahead and put them in chat, or feel free to unmute yourself because we're such a small group today. The main clause usually contains the subject in a complex sentence. And again, so if the main clause is before the subordinating conjunction, then we have an active sentence. If it's after, we have a complex sentence. I know that you're familiar with this information because you're already ESOL teachers. So, but we want to make sure students understand that. So where do we find this language, this vocabulary? Where do we find it? Well, in word problems, and I got to say a word, I have to say something about word problems. There are 3 parts to a word problem. There's the scenario, there are facts, and then there's a question or a command, you know, you want to solve or find or list. And it's in this scenario that they don't have a beginning, middle, and end. They don't have setting, plots, and characters. They just have a sentence or two, and they have to be able to deconstruct that sentence in order to make sense of it. So that is why we really need to go ahead and teach that. And of course, we have the text, and sentences are in text features. So we need to analyze that. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And how are we using the math concepts? It's not listed here, but I want to say a word about cultural significance as well. While we are listing all these real world scenarios with the students in word problems, let's make sure we incorporate some of their culture as well in our text, in our word problems. So, because that will increase the level of comprehension. And I know my time is starting to wane. Let's see. And I don't want to keep you any longer, but I do want to go ahead and start that next activity if I could. So we're going to go back to, you're going to go back to your same groups just for a second or two. I'm just going to give you 2 minutes. Go back to those groups and look at page 2 here in just a second. What I've done here, I've listed by language level the type of instruction the student should need, or the type of sentence structure that should be focused on, right? So if you're a level 2 at the beginning of the year, then really I should be focusing on the simple sentences with you. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a word problem and I'll stack the sentences to make it easier for you to identify subjects and predicates, right? I don't generally give an L2 a paragraph form until the end of the year. And I have to point out that if you're from a WIDA state, WIDA Performance Standards does this as well. So, but theirs is a little bit different than mine. Mine is from an expert practitioner's perspective, and not so much as a theorist. So, okay, so do we need to open back, can we open back up the breakout rooms really quickly? And remember, you're not entering your name, you're going to enter A1 or, and you're going to page 2. The assignment is on page 3. I'll pop into the rooms as well.
Sure, I'll open them now.
Okay, and if you've lost your link, the link will be earlier in the chat. So just scroll up. What I'll do is I'll switch this screen to our groups. And then I will go on over.
You're muted, Lela, so I can't hear you. Sorry.
I'm popping back into A2 at this point.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'm gonna go into breakout room 3 or B1, and I'll be right back. Okay, well, Stephanie, I want to respect everybody's time, and we're already after 1. So if you could go ahead and close the breakout room in 1 minute, and then we can go ahead and wrap up.
Sounds good.
Share screen again at the end of.
I think some dropped off, Dr. Horne. You can go on and wrap up, and then I'll do the last part.
All right. Well, if anybody has any thoughts to share, that'd be great about the last activity. The whole goal was for you to be able to identify the current sentence structure and then be able to modify the sentence structure to match the needs of the student. So not sure, we kind of just did an overview today. This would really require, more training, but as an overview, did you understand what the goals were? Were you able to be able to do this a little bit?
Yes, we discussed it in my group, and we were able to explain the importance of it by going from the levels from L1 to L5, and
Mhm.
how by understanding that with our students, it would help with where we would place them as they work with the worksheet on slide 3.
Okay, great. I'm glad that it was helpful to you. I hope that you'll be able to do this as you walk back into the classroom. Let's see, we've talked about vocabulary today. We've talked about text structure and how to analyze that text structure to improve improve comprehension is really what we're doing. And today we focused on the reading domain more than anything. I can't stress enough how important pictures are. Especially pictures that represent the text. Organizational and informational, also very extremely important. We have a link out in chat, a free course for math for ELLs for this summer. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. We want to make sure that we don't have time for today. I did have a screencast that I wanted you to see as well. The video that we watched today in Nearpod, you can create your own videos for free and upload them for students to review your lessons. And that would just be a screencast. But again, you're going to receive the links for all of these free websites at the end. And here's the link. So what I'm going to do is send that out in chat right now. And if we have any other comments or questions, I'll still be here to answer those. So let me go ahead and copy this and send this out to you.
So as everyone gets their answers and their questions that they want to be answered, we would like at the MPC to thank everyone for coming in today. I know there was a confusion with the time. Dr. Horne has agreed along with myself that we will come back in at 4 o'clock this evening, Central Standard Time. And hopefully I can get in touch with Ms. Valerie so we can play the recording and Dr. Horne can answer any questions real time to people that may have questions and all. But once again, we want to say thank you. I hope this was valuable information for you all. If you all would like to just get Dr. Horne's information, Dr. Horne, if you don't mind putting your email address into the chat, so those that are here, if they have questions or they want to talk to you, even by coming and working with a couple of people with their affiliate, I think that will be great. Lynn, I want to always say thank everyone who came on, those who are able to stay on, thanks. And once again, we will be back on at 4 o'clock for those who may need assistance or help with any of this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for attending.
Yeah, have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Be safe, everyone.